Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. I may just start scheduling these in advance because we pretty frequently are doing okay with the little one just crawling around. So once again, not actually asleep this time, which may mean that I have to suddenly jump off and go tend to the little thing. But she seems pretty happy for now. Okay, so this is it's a local politics sort of update, but it's also a national political issue. So yesterday, I went to the state capitol here in Colorado and spoke out against a bill that's under consideration there. This bill, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but I'm sure it's easy enough to Google. You need to look this up because it probably affects your state. There is a bill out there, the idea of which is basically to eliminate the Electoral College and to switch the country over to a popular vote system for selecting the president. So the way that it works is the states get to generally, within certain parameters, so this is probably unconstitutional, but anyway, they're doing it. Within certain parameters, they get to decide how the electoral votes are cast and allocated. And so the bill essentially says that the state will now give 100% of its electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote. This is passed already in 12 states. 200 and something electoral votes already. They have a certain threshold, though, so this law will not take effect unless a certain number of states sign on. It's not based on number of states. I believe it's based on number of electoral college votes. So, I believe it's based around having essentially enough electoral college votes that the president will be selected by the national popular vote. That will be like how this happens, right? So this is, you should go look this up. Go see if your state has already passed this. If they haven't, go look at when they're considering this. There is a very, very strong, very expensive lobbying effort behind this, clearly. There were a lot of people there. And I'd say maybe 25% were opposed. It might even be less than that. The room was full, like standing room only. And I was one of the last people against it to speak. We alternated pro, con. And by the time the last person against it spoke, the room was still full of people waiting to speak for the pro side. So again, there is a bill out there, probably in your state, maybe already passed, saying that your state will give its electoral college votes to the winner of the national popular vote, regardless of how people in your particular state voted. 12 states have already passed this. It doesn't go into effect until enough states have passed it that it determines the outcome of the election, that there are enough electoral votes if states sign on to this. It's a compact between states. Very, very heavily supported by lobby groups. It was very, very interesting. Well, I wouldn't say interesting because I wasn't surprised at all, but it was yet another example of just the way that politics operates, right? There were a number of groups there who, every single group that got up to speak claimed to be a nonpartisan group, and yet every single group that got up to speak was on the same side of the issue, and they were for it. The League of Women Voters would be one of the worst offenders in this regard. Yeah, a lot of people talking about the 19th Amendment, notably passed as an amendment, the correct way to change the system, as opposed to this end run around. But you wouldn't want consistency from leftists, would you? And yeah, we're coming up on 100 years of women's suffrage, and how's that working out, guys? How's that looking these days? Hopefully people remember the lessons of history. We'll just leave it at that. So these nonpartisan groups that all happen to be on the same side of the issue. There was a very interesting moment for those who have been watching Owen Benjamin and caught his "Who is your master?" moment. I ended up saying that during the session because a very valid question was asked by an unfortunately a little too, is quizzling the right word? Anyway, a little, the Republicans there, the state senate, this was basically a panel of four, it's a committee of four state senators. It seemed to me like two were against. One was the guy bringing the bill, so he's obviously for. Then someone else was sort of administering the session. She was being the chairperson for the day. And I would say likely she was for. That's just the sense that I got. Hello. And then there were two Republicans who were definitely against it, who represented more rural parts of the state and who were, of course, very legitimately concerned about the interests of rural populations being ignored if we go to a national popular vote. And I wish they just had been a little fiercer, not a little, like a lot fiercer. But anyway, they asked the question of the League of Women Voters, who were like, well, we're nonpartisan. This ties into so many things we've been talking about. We're nonpartisan. We make our policy decisions based on research, based on the latest research, based on science. Okay. It's science, and our science says that the national popular vote is what we should do. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous, huh? It's ridiculous. Women say the silliest things. So yeah, of course. And who are you to argue with science? It's nonpartisan, guys. It's nonpartisan science that, pure democracy is the way to go. Yeah, that's right. Aristotle may have disagreed, but what does he know? He's a dead white male. He's a dead white male. What are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about that? Everyone's going to get their ears hurt. Ow. That was intense. That was intense, little one. All right, let's see if we can handle this. You guys want to listen to me while I'm not visible? Hey, little one. Hey. Hello. Hello. Okay, so this is instead of the sleep stream. This is the invisible stream. Let's see if this works. Hey, don't steal my headphones. Hey now. I need those. Okay, so they asked them, of course, so they're like, oh, we do the latest research. And there says, she basically asked, who is your master? Who paid for this research? Where does this research come from? And you would not believe, well, you probably would if you've watched politics, but she gave the most dissembling, deceptive answer that I have seen in a while. I mean, it's a simple, very direct question, right? Who paid for this research? Who paid for this research? And, of course, this is something that leftists love to trot out when they think it will benefit them. We can't believe any research done by the tobacco companies. We can't believe any research done by any kind of company, corporation, anything that they pay for. We can only believe the nonpartisan government research, of course. There's no way that could be biased. We can't believe the research done by the oil companies. We can't believe the research done by anybody except for the people whose research agrees with what we already believe. And so she took forever to answer this question. She just talks and talks and talks. And basically she's like using these, this like word salad, like spewing out this word salad to kind of put you in this trance and put you in this place where it's like you can barely focus on what she's speaking. You can barely focus on the words that she's actually saying. And then finally, at the end of this big, long, rambling thing, she slips in, like, I'm not exactly sure, but I can say that our report comes from such and such a group. I forget what it's like, Vote First or something like that. That if, God, I wish I could remember the group exactly, but she never actually answered. Like, that doesn't answer it, right? The answer is, who is that group? That group is one that I've seen their name around, and I'm like fairly sure it's one of the Soros-backed groups. Like, I'm pretty sure it's one of those, which was basically what the question is, right? Which is where I wish they had been more fierce, because she didn't answer the question. So the correct thing to do, because they have another chance to respond, of course, is to ask her directly, who is your master? That was the question, and they won't answer it. And that's how you know, right? They won't answer. If you can't answer that question, then you know that the person serves evil. You know that they do. So yeah. And of course, they intentionally, I'm sure, send someone who is not totally up on this stuff. Hello, Odd Job. Go to sleep. Yeah, good for the the sleep stream. I did wear makeup today. Yay. Okay, I'm getting my stuff together. It probably mostly looks good because it's a little grainy. This may be beneficial. Anyway, yeah, sorry about that. It's night. Normally I have nice natural lighting in here. Anyway, so yeah, this is obviously being pushed by a bunch of shills, a bunch of lobbyists who want to have California decide what happens to the rest of the country. So in the short run, again, figure out if this is up on your state and call your congressman, do your thing. I called my senator today. I'm very sorry, guys. My senator, my Republican senator, is a total cuck traitor who is turning on Trump and trying to end the shutdown and go behind his back and team up with Nancy Pelosi. I am real sorry about that, but I did call him and leave a message. It's very easy. They have these very nice, pleasant voicemails. You can find their number online. It's like contactsenator.com or something like that. And it's so easy. You just call and leave a voicemail, and you can say your name and the city that you're from, so they know that that you're someone that they represent, or not. You could just leave a random message if you wanted. That's probably what the left does. And yeah, speak your mind, right? So yeah, pay attention to this and see if you can get involved, because God knows the other side is showing up in droves. Like, my God, these people have nothing better to do. Who knows? Maybe they're getting paid to be there. I don't know. I sure as heck wasn't. It was quite a way to spend half a vacation day for me as a new mom. But surprisingly, the baby did amazing there. But yeah, people just go on and on and on. And it's very interesting how much dishonesty there is. Oh, yes. How much dishonesty there is in the way people will talk about these issues, and how much they can hide behind ignorance, how much they can hide behind letting someone else kind of do the dirty work. Here's an interesting other part of it. So we ended up sitting for a while in the overflow room. No, you don't eat the wires. No. Thank you. So we ended up sitting in the overflow room for a bit because it was slightly cooler down there, but it was still really hot. But fewer people, and the baby, could crawl around some. And there was like 4 people down there besides us, and then one of them left. And one of them was this dude who was doing that like blowhard boomer, like talk to himself thing in the corner. Like, every single person down there was in favor of the amendment except for me and my family. And this guy just kept, we were listening on the loudspeaker to the speakers, and he kept like yelling his responses like back to the speaker. And it was interesting to see the way that it evolved, where like at the beginning he was saying, like, oh no, these people just don't understand it. Like, it's really going to work. It's really going to help them, right? There was one Black person who spoke, and he spoke in favor of it. He was someone who had come here from Louisiana. He came here specifically because Colorado doesn't tell people what to do in their personal lives, and that is increasingly less and less the case. And he was lamenting that. And you could be the guy in our room, he's the older white guy, was so close to just saying like, oh, he was very white man's burden about it. Like, we'll just put it like that. He was so close to saying like, this dumb Black guy doesn't know what's best for him. And if he would just listen to me, this like liberal white dude, I would make everything great for him, right? He doesn't know what's good for him, which is, of course, what you hear all the time, is what they say all the time. I grew up on the left coast, right? This is what they say all the time about rural voters, about like minority groups when they, defect and vote conservative. It's all the time. It's just, you don't know what's best for you, and we know. So then it started to turn into that. It's like, oh, we really know what's best for you. Then by the end, as it kept coming and people kept making points, he finally just started saying, well, tough shit. When someone was like, this will like disenfranchise us, this will mean that like we have less of a voice, which is objectively true for the state of Colorado, especially. And he's like, well, tough shit. And the other line was, we're all Americans. So it is interesting to see. There were a couple of interesting things looking at kind of the rhetoric side of things, right? Very poor rhetoric on the side of the right. Not the best rhetoric on the side of the left, but they did have some stronger points. So their main focus of their rhetoric, which I think is actually, it's pretty good catchphrase, is one person, one vote. one person, one vote, one person, one vote. And I did definitely not see a good counter to that on the rhetorical level. Like, there's a dialectic answer, obviously, but on the rhetorical level, there's not a good response to that that I saw come up. And I'm not the best at rhetoric. The approach that I tried to take was basically to say, the question that we're addressing here isn't really about this electoral college issue. The question is there such a thing as a Coloradan? Does Colorado exist as its own unique entity with its own people, its own values? And then if we do exist, then why would we ever give over our representation to California and New York and Texas and Florida? If we don't exist, then why are we here? Then why do we have a state capital? Why do you guys have jobs? Why do these state senators have jobs? Let's all just go home and let California make all our decisions, not just who is president. So that was probably okay. I think it might have been even better to agree and amplify in this case, which is kind of that last part there, right? Is like to go in there and just say, oh yeah, the real problem with this bill is it doesn't go far enough. And what we should really do is just let Alabama decide our abortion laws and let California decide our taxes, let Nevada decide what happens to our water, all that kind of stuff. That's like Coloradans don't need to make any decisions for themselves. So just let everyone else in the country decide for us. That would probably be pretty good. But there's still, I can't think of something that's like the little sound bite, the little, like the one person, one vote, which is a pretty handy thing to repeat. And then they can also say, like, we're all Americans, aren't we? But of course the answer is no, we are not all Americans. And we're not talking about America, we're talking about Colorado. So if you can't tell the difference between those two, it's a really good example of the R versus K thing again, right? It's like the R's are a herd animal, and to them, the bigger the herd, the better. And that's why they're so obsessed with like coexist. We're all humans. There's no differences between people. It's like there's no differences between states. We're all just Americans. We're all just a big interchangeable melting pot. Like no regional differences, no cultural differences, right? And if you feel that there are differences, then you're wrong. You're wrong. Herd camouflage is against the herd, right? So everyone in the herd needs to be the same, or we're all in danger. But then at the same time, they are unable to perceive threats that are very obvious to the more K types. So you saw this very consistently, like virtually everyone who spoke opposed to it was male. And because it's Colorado, many of them were more of the libertarian stripe than, really the right. But, one guy was talking about like how the long-term consequences of this, or can we think about like, imagine in a future time circumstances are different in Colorado, or like, you might feel like in the short run that this will get you the result you want, but you have to think about the long term. And the crazy guy in our room was literally like, why don't you just build a bomb shelter? Like, the guy was not saying anything extreme, right? He kept freaking out saying that the rhetoric on the side of the people opposed to it was somehow extreme when they were talking about logical potential consequences of this, right? And it's the same thing you see when the left's like, they smeared slippery slope like hardcore, right? As though that is a non sequitur, and slippery slope is not inherently a non sequitur. It's some slopes are slippery, and every single slippery slope that the left mocked relentlessly that I can remember in my entire life has come true. Every single one has come true. But it's so interesting that like they see this, on the one hand, they see this big threat. They see this big threat from the Electoral College and this obsession with feeling like their vote doesn't count, which is another, that's a real fallacy that they were committing, but I'll talk about that in a second. But then, when someone talks about more concrete but long-term threats, it sounds crazy to them. Like it literally sounds crazy to them. That's their reaction. RK on full display, of course, as one would expect. It was also interesting, this fallacy, this fourth terming. I think that's the right one. I see this a lot. So basically you start off talking about something, but then in the middle you kind of switch definitions about what you're talking about. And then, you can pretend like you proved something that you didn't. So they did this a lot by using this. Hello. Hi. What's up? You want to pull my hair? You just want to say hi? Hello. Hi. Okay. I'm going to tell the people some more stuff, okay? Yeah, okay. Hi, people. Right. So the particular thing they did here was so they would talk about people's vote not counting. And the reality is so basically their complaint was like, if you are in right now under the Electoral College, if you are in, there's winner take all state, and Colorado's a winner take all state, right? So whoever wins the majority in the state gets all the Electoral College votes. So then they were saying the people who didn't vote with the majority in the state, their vote isn't counted. Their vote isn't counted. Well, that's just like straight on the face of it not true. Like, do we throw them away? Did we lose them? Did we pull a Broward County? Like, no, that's not what happened. They were counted. There just weren't enough of them, and then they don't get the Electoral College votes because that's the rule, right? You could just change that. I mean, you couldn't, if you thought this was so unfair, you could just introduce a bill to say, instead of winner take all, let's just give our Electoral College votes proportional to how people vote in Colorado. Like, why not just do that? They don't want that. Hi, Well. The topic is there is a bill out there to award Electoral College votes in the state to the winner of the national popular vote. It's already been adopted by 12 states. It's under consideration in my state, Colorado, and I just went yesterday to speak out against it. But there is a massive, massive effort to push this through, and it'll only go into effect if enough states adopt it, such that it will force the outcome of the presidential race to be the winner of the national popular vote. So it's basically it's a route around the Electoral College, its whole purpose, and what was I going to say? And avoiding making a constitutional amendment, which they should instead. I have too much energy on the exterior. That's interesting. Okay. I don't know. Okay, in simple language, a bunch of commies are trying to make sure that next time Hillary Clinton wins the presidency. How about that? Anyway, so right, so then they're claiming your vote. So your vote doesn't count in Colorado if you vote for president, but you're not in the majority, and then all the Electoral College votes are awarded to the candidate that won the majority in the state. Okay, fine. Then on now their solution to this, saying this means your vote doesn't count, their solution to this is to award all of the Electoral College votes to the winner of the national popular vote, and they're claiming that then that means your vote counted. So when you vote for the president, but your candidate doesn't win, that counts your vote. But when you vote for the Electoral College and your side doesn't win, that means your vote doesn't count. They're exactly the same situation. There's just two levels, right? Like, eventually in the process, it's winner take all. There's no, like, we don't do the thing we tried at the beginning of like the vice president is the runner up to president, right? It's a single ticket. It's winner take all. That's how it works. It's just we have a two-tiered process that are both winner take all. So either no one's vote counts ever unless their candidate wins, which doesn't make any sense, or our vote already counts. Everyone's votes count. It's the same. So it's total nonsense rhetoric. Yeah, I know. I hope it won't happen too. But they have a lot of effort. Like, I went to this thing and there were a lot of people. Like, the room was full, standing room only, and it was like 75% at least people who are in favor of this bill. It was probably more than that. I don't think Hillary is going to live long enough to run again. But who knows? Who knows what kind of crazy technology the elites have access to? Maybe they can keep her, maybe they can make her like the first floating head in a jar president, a la Futurama. I'm positive she would take that offer if it was given to her. I mean, that's, how twisted and satanic she is. And how desperate she is probably to stay out of the grave, because nothing good waits for her there. Anyway, so local politics, man. Whew, that stuff is exhausting. It is disgusting. Yeah. I don't know what to do about the dynasty thing. I mean, obviously, I would love to vote for Barron Trump one day. But, on the other hand, would you? And then how do you define it, right? It's like, well, if we ban dynasties, then like, how would you ban it? If you banned it for the presidency, like, what wouldn't you have? You wouldn't have George W. Bush and you wouldn't have FDR. Not having FDR would be pretty huge. And I don't know if he was direct enough descendant. Oh, yeah, I voted Trump. I've actually never voted before then, but I voted for Trump. And that was the only thing I voted for in that election. I have voted since then, but yeah. So, yeah, local politics, man. People are crazy. People are crazy. And hello. Hi, Michael McLaughlin. What's up? I'm talking about, I guess I'll recap again, just in case for new people, because this is like an action item. This is actually important. So go look this up. If you're in America, if you're not in a US state, you don't worry about it. If you're in America, there is a bill probably in your state that they are going to, instead of awarding the Electoral College votes in your state the way they currently do, they will give them all to the winner of the national popular vote. And already 12 states have passed this. There might be, it's on the ballot right now or whatever. It's before committee in Colorado. And I went yesterday to go argue against it. There is a massive, massive push to get this through. There is a massive, heavily financed, let's say, group pushing this through because they hate rural America, basically. They want California and New York to pick the president because who could know better? Who could know better than the urban elites? Yeah, exactly. It's most likely not constitutional, but it's not worth that risk. Like at this point, I mean, I know Trump is like working on packing the court. I don't see how it could be constitutional, but then they'll just start the push to do it as an amendment as well. So I think it would be better just to nip it in the bud and start figuring out how to operate, right? Because like these people are experienced operators. They know what is what. And I don't. I'm trying to figure it out. But what I am seeing is that in general, people on the right, don't know how to do this. They don't know how to fight. And I found this even just in that committee, right? Like there was two people on the committee were clearly Republicans, two who were opposed to it. Two, I think, were pretty clearly Democrats who are in favor of it. One for sure, because he was the one sponsoring the bill. And he, they tried in a way, I mean, but they're still it's the bow tie conservative thing. Like they're still very wedded to the process. There was even a point where a former senator came in to testify, of course, again, in favor of the bill because swamp. And yeah, exactly. That came up a lot. Yeah, they were like, oh, there's so much, 3/5, blah, blah, blah. Women didn't have to vote, blah, blah, blah. I love the founders, but they were racist. Yeah, so they had this little moment of like kind of making some inside jokes together. And then they're like, we want everyone to see like what this process is like and how cordial we are and, how well we get along. And, like, it's very important for us to show you like how respectful like we are to each other and all of that. And it's like, oh my God, no, it's way past the point of being respectful, right? I mean, people were dissembling, they were lying, they were not answering the questions, they're not showing the respect to you that you are showing to them. And it's way past the point of like playing this game and playing nice. It's like someone needs to start like banging the shoe on the table, like, Khrushchev style, or like at the very least, right? What did John C. Calhoun did something kind of badass, right? Didn't he like go beat someone with a stick at one point with like a cane? Like that kind of shit, man. That's like like that's where, at the very least where things need to be, instead of just this like, oh, we want to be fair to everyone. We want to hear all sides as much as possible. We want to like show respect. And it's like, dude, some opinions don't deserve a whole lot of respect, okay? Like your job is to represent the people who put you in that chair, not to, play some sort of game and then pat yourself on the back for how civil you are. Yeah, exactly. Well, see, and now it's even worse because people it will be one thing if people voted themselves the treasury. The problem is they are voting other people's treasury, right? And that's what this is being set up to do. This is like, oh, like, okay, so Colorado, like for instance, has the fracking. Colorado has like the gas and energy, and there's going to be a big crisis in that respect in the country eventually, right? So yeah, by all means, let's put all of the power into the hands of California and to New York, so that when the time comes, the people who actually have all of the resources have to ship them all to California and to New York, or have to pay, 90%. Like they end up redistributing the money to. I mean, there's the most bizarre claim on here. The claim was like, if they got rid of the Electoral College, if they just did the national popular vote, then you wouldn't have power states like New Hampshire and Iowa. That's absolutely true. Like, of course, any game that you set up is going to create unintended consequences. There's going always to be a way to play. You have to play the game, right? Like they're always going to work like that. You can't. There's no such thing as what is like, because they keep talking about fairness, and you can always make a game more fair, but I'm not sure you can ever make it perfectly fair, unless the game is very, very simple. But this obviously is not going to be simple. So anyway, we have the system set up this certain way, and it has certain consequences, like New Hampshire and Iowa are very powerful. Okay. So then they were like, oh, well, then there's all this pork barrel spending. And then they claimed that changing the game to be just the national popular vote basically would eliminate that. Like somehow you wouldn't have an incentive to pork barrel spend when you have, oh, I don't know, let's say like the greater Los Angeles area with like, what is it? It's like the top metro areas, like handful, like less, like 4, they're the top 7 metro areas have like 1/3 of the population of the United States or something like that. I mean, it's like, yeah, there would be absolutely no incentive anymore for pork barrel spending and representing the group, like representing only certain parts of the country under the national popular vote, because why? Like it makes no sense, right? But of course they know that doesn't make any sense. What it is for them, and this was another interesting kind of R-selected thing, it's like there was so much obsession with this feeling of your voice being heard, this feeling of your vote counting, not any cognizance of the bigger system, not any cognizance of how political systems can be set up and how peaceful transfer of power can be achieved. Nothing like that. It's like it's so emotionally driven. It's so emotionally driven by their personal feeling about how much their vote counts. And it was just like, I don't even really believe them in a sense, because I bet if you move the goalposts, that something else would be the biggest issue to them. But it's like the way they were talking about it, it's like, oh, like it's like what it's such a big cost. It's such a big cost to like move from one state to another. Like if I move from Wyoming to Colorado, I'm losing so much because my vote for president counts for so much more in Wyoming. It's like, dude, barely anybody votes. Like you do it once every 4 years for president, and usually one of those times it doesn't count because there's an incumbent and it doesn't matter, they're going to win. Like this is like really unhinged. Like if the most important thing in your life is something you do once every 4 years, over which even with the national popular vote you really don't have any control over, like your existence is going to be, well, it's going to be that like rabbit existence, right? It's total existence of a prey animal. And these like things that they fixate on. Anyway, yeah, it's like, right, on that basis, Michael, you could just say like, oh, my vote doesn't count because, there's other people who are being paid practically directly to vote for certain people. All right, someone had a question. I'm gonna go back. Can I discuss any other topics? I can, but I won't probably. Trump is a no good face worldwide. Trump is the best face everywhere. You will learn to love him. You will learn to love. Even funny, yeah, the demagoguery. I mean, I almost like, I wish it were just the demagoguery, right? Like they're not even good speakers anymore. It's like Obama was not a good speaker. People, yeah, it's, at least demagoguery is a skill. People don't even seem to need to have skill anymore. What's wrong? No? Yeah, okay. You're okay? All right. Let's see. Michael rant. Yeah, I mean, once you have, yeah, exactly, you are paying the government to disenfranchise you for sure. And then on top of that, with the national popular vote thing right now, like implementing in this way is absolutely the wrong way to do it. One of the biggest problems with it is going to be who gets to vote and how they get to vote is determined by the state. So when you're just going to take the results of the national popular vote, you are then accepting the votes of, felons in Florida, and maybe your state doesn't let felons vote, but in another state they do. Maybe they have more hours at the poll. Maybe they have longer periods for early voting. And so this is like supposed to be the actual disenfranchisement, right? When like people aren't treated equally. And that's kind of where the constitutional challenges are probably going to come in. And even if constitutional challenges don't happen, there's going to be lawsuits like every election. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, there's the topic. I think I've exhausted it. So I'm going to go play with the baby. It was nice to see y'all, and I hope I'll be able to jump on tomorrow. Bye.